Today, we will explore the history of our nearest neighbor in space, the Moon. Thank you for watching. Sit back and enjoy. The Moon is about 4.5 billion years old, just a bit younger than the Earth itself. But how did it come to be? One of the most widely accepted theories among scientists is that the Moon formed early in the solar system's history, when the Earth and an object about the size of Mars, known as Theia, smashed into each other. The impact sent chunks of Earth and Theia into space that formed into rings around the Earth. Eventually, these rings joined together under the force of gravity, thus creating the Moon. This giant impact hypothesis explains why the Moon has a similar composition to the Earth's mantle and crust, but lacks a large iron core like the Earth has. This suggests that the two objects did not meet head-on. Instead, the collision was more of a sideswipe, meaning planet Theia would have missed most of the iron core at the center of the Earth. This would explain why the iron core on the Moon is rather small for an object of its size. This hypothesis could also explain why the Earth's axis is tilted by about 23 degrees, giving us seasons. The impact would have also increased Earth's rotational speed, making the days last just 6 hours. But over time, tidal forces between Earth and the Moon slowed down both objects' rotation speed and pushed the Moon further away from Earth. This is still happening to this day at a rate of roughly 3.8 centimeters, or just under 1.5 inches per year. At the time of its formation, the Moon was nearly 20 times closer to Earth. Today, the Moon orbits Earth at an average distance of 384,400 kilometers, or 238,900 miles. This is about 30 times the diameter of the Earth, and it is enough space that all the planets in the solar system could fit between Earth and the Moon, with some room left over. It takes about 27 days for the Moon to complete one orbit around Earth, and about 29 days to go through all of its phases, from new moon to full moon. Now, let's explore some of the Moon's surface features. The Moon has a surface area of about 38 million square kilometers, or about 15 million square miles. This works out to about 7.4% of Earth's surface area. The Moon has two main types of terrain: the darker areas, called maria, which is the Latin word for seas, and the higher areas, called the highlands. The maria are large basins that were filled with lava flows about 3 to 4 billion years ago. They cover about 16% of the lunar surface, mostly on the near side that faces Earth. The largest of these maria is called the Ocean of Storms, and it covers about 10% of the near side alone. The highlands are older and more heavily cratered than the maria. They are composed of anorthosite, a type of rock rich in calcium and aluminum. The Moon has thousands of craters, varying in size and age. These are the traces of impacts from asteroids, comets, and meteoroids. Upon these impacts, a material known as ejecta is thrown out of the impact zone and can be seen as bright material surrounding the craters. The largest crater is the South Pole Aitken Basin, which is about 2,500 kilometers, or 1,600 miles in diameter, and it is about 8 kilometers, or roughly 5 miles deep. The Moon also has some volcanic features, like channels that were carved by lava flows. There are also rounded hills formed by lava eruptions, and curved depressions in the surface formed by collapsed lava tubes. The dust on the lunar surface is called regolith, which is a mixture of fine soil and rock fragments. It ranges from a few meters to tens of meters thick, depending on the location. It is a very dry and powdery substance that can cling to surfaces due to electrostatic forces. The moon has no significant atmosphere or hydrosphere, so it does not have weather or erosion like Earth does. However, it does have some traces of gas and dust that form a very thin exosphere. The main sources of gas on the moon are charged particles from the sun called solar wind. Gases are also released from rocks and micrometeoroid impacts. The main gases in this exosphere are helium, argon, neon, sodium, and potassium. The moon has a much weaker gravity than Earth, about 1/6 the gravity of Earth. This means that objects on the moon weigh much less than they do on Earth and can travel much further when thrown or dropped. For example, a golf ball hit by an astronaut on the moon could fly for several kilometers, while on Earth, it would fly only a few hundred meters. With this gravity, someone who weighs 150 pounds on Earth would weigh just 25 pounds on the moon. The moon also controls the tides here on Earth. The gravitational force from the moon pulls at the water. The side of the Earth facing the moon is pulled slightly more than the water on the side facing away from the moon. This creates two bulges of water on Earth, one on each side of the planet. The difference in water level between high tide and low tide is called the tidal range, and it varies depending on the location and the phase of the moon. The moon's gravity also affects its own shape by stretching it slightly along the line connecting it to Earth. This makes the moon slightly oval-shaped, with its longer axis pointing toward Earth. The difference in diameter between the long axis and the short axis is about 34 kilometers, or 21 miles. The moon is currently the only celestial body, other than Earth, that humans have walked. The first human-made object to reach the moon was the Luna 2, a Soviet probe that crashed into the lunar surface in 1959. The first human-made object to orbit the moon was Luna 10, another Soviet probe that entered lunar orbit in 1966. The first humans to orbit the moon were Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders, the crew of Apollo 8 in 1968. They were also the first humans to see the far side of the moon and witness an Earthrise, a phenomenon where Earth appears to rise over the lunar horizon. The first humans to land on the moon were Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin, the crew of Apollo 11 in 1969. They were also the first humans to walk on the lunar surface and collect lunar samples. Armstrong's famous words upon stepping out of the lunar module were, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The last humans to land on the moon were Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt, the crew of Apollo 17 in 1972. They were also the last humans to walk on the lunar surface and collect lunar samples so far. In total, 12 humans have walked on the moon, spending about 80 hours on the surface and collecting about 842 pounds or 382 kilograms of lunar samples. They also performed various scientific experiments, such as measuring seismic activity, magnetic fields, and solar wind. They also left behind some artifacts, such as flags, plaques, rovers, and golf balls. The most recent human-made object to land on the moon was Chang'e 5, a Chinese probe that collected about 2 kilograms or 4.4 pounds of lunar samples and returned them to Earth in 2020. It was also the first probe to perform an automated rendezvous and docking in lunar orbit. The most recent object to orbit the moon was NASA's Orion capsule of the Artemis 1 mission in late 2022. This was the first step in NASA's Artemis program, which is their plan to send humans back to the moon. I will likely do a video on the Artemis program in the near future. The moon is our closest companion in space. It is a source of wonder and inspiration for many generations. It is also a natural laboratory for studying planetary formation, evolution, and geology. It is a potential resource for future exploration and colonization. It is also a reminder of our place in the cosmos, as well as our connection to each other. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, feel free to show your support with a like, or share it with someone you think may enjoy it. I would also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you would like to see more videos like this in the future, feel free to subscribe. Thanks again. Until next time, take care and be well.